Alright, it's May, and as promised, I'm still reading out questions asked by supporters in the old $3 tier in April. But remember, they've gone up, so if you'd like to ask a question for May, it'll now be the new $5 tier. The links are below. By the way, for the time being, you'll still get the lower level benefits such as early videos and access to the monthly live stream. I'm trying to phase these out a bit at a time, but at some point you'll have to move over to the new tiers if you want to keep getting benefits. Also keep in mind, you can now become a regular supporter not only on Patreon and Subscribestar, but on the Bogosity Discord as well. If you sign up for the AMA tier, just pop your question into the AMA questions channel that magically pops up under supporter channels. Let's start out on Subscribestar, where FunwithFacts asks, Hi Shane, do you think the US should switch to a proportional or mixed member system in order to end the two-party system? I absolutely do, but I'm under no delusion that it's at all likely to happen. First off, the political parties hold massive power over our election, our government, and the public purse. The power to tax, the power to wage war, and the power to manipulate our very lives is what they'd give up by making this sort of change. Also, consider specifically the Electoral College. You could set it up where electors are assigned proportionally, and I'd be in favor of that, but what state would do it? If you're a swing state, you'd give up the attention and influence you get every election cycle. The campaigns would be more spread out, which would be good for voters, but again, swing states wouldn't want to give that up. Now consider a safe state such as California. In 2020, all of California's 55 electoral votes went to Biden, but since he got about 63.5% of the vote, if they had proportional representation in the Electoral College, he would have only gotten 35, with 20 going to Donald Trump. The Democrats who rule the state are not going to give up those electoral votes. So that's the problem, and I don't see how you're going to do anything to improve things other than by convincing people of the plain and simple truth that the whole thing is rigged and illegitimate. Dickin Myanus asks, Do you check the messages from donations or private messages on this platform? I'm not mad or anything. I want to find out the root cause of why I have not gotten a reply. I assume it would be the notification system here and you needing to log in and check manually. I can only apologize profusely, but the root cause is Subscribestar sucks. They give me no notifications whatsoever when someone has sent me a message. I log into Subscribestar all the time when I have to post something new, but despite the fact that there's that little bell thingy at the top of the site, it does not light up or anything when I have a new message. I have to specifically check the messages page, and even then, it doesn't tell me which ones are new and which ones I've already read. Patreon is a bit better. They at least send notifications to my phone and on the site, although they're not always 100% reliable. By far, the best way to get up with me is on the Discord. It's a good thing you asked though, because that let me see that Dave Saunders sent me one in a message, so Dave, give Dick a quick thanks for me actually catching this. I might not have otherwise. Anyway, he asks, Hi Shane. In your opinion, what was the benefit for the individual U.S. states becoming united, and if they hadn't, would this have prevented the Civil War? That's an interesting question since the Civil War wasn't about slavery, it was about secession. If they'd never united into one country in the first place, there would have been no secession. So for that reason alone, there logically couldn't have been a Civil War. Would there have been a war over slavery anyway? That's a far more difficult question to answer. The territorial conflicts might have been a lot worse, basically fighting over whether new territories separated from Spain or whoever would have been slaveholding or free. There would also have been economic rivalries, with the states imposing tariffs and other import restrictions on other states. That could have led to diplomatic tensions which might have fueled a war. And considering that these individual states, not being united, would have had to rely on alliances for mutual protection, the northern states might have allied with England and other nations that opposed slavery, while the South allied with Spain and other nations that were more tolerant of slavery. So think about what would happen if a conflict arises and all these European countries get pulled into the conflict because of mutual defense treaties. It might not have been a civil war. It might have been World War I half a century early. On the other hand, slavery, being an economic drain, might have had its days numbered even faster if the southern states had remained separate countries. They might have had an economic incentive to end slavery to improve their economic position, especially if slavery affected trade with many other wealthy nations, including the northern states as well as Western Europe. Okay, let's go over to Patreon where Michael Kremer asks, "Please correct me if I misrepresent your views. Judging from what you said in your videos on abortion, would you say you believe abortion is immoral but not unethical?" Not exactly. I'd say a ban on abortion would be unethical as a violation of the non-aggression principle. Abortion itself wouldn't necessarily be unethical or immoral. However, everyone has the ability to decide what they think is immoral and what they're going to do as a result. If all of the doctors think abortion is immoral and they won't perform them, then that in and of itself would greatly reduce access. Which, of course, would have other negative consequences, such as women trying to do it themselves and all the harms we've seen resulting from that. I think the most likely scenario is that it will be governed by the standards and practices of the industry. There are already medical ethics boards that review decisions made by doctors, clinics, and hospitals. A hospital's ethics board would decide for their own hospital's policy about what form of abortion would be ethical and under what circumstances. That would be a much better result than any political solution. Darth Vega asks, "Happy Bitcoin halving day, everyone. What is your response to the cryptocurrency naysayers who say that the currency is not based on anything?" It is based on something. It's based on math. Gold and silver traditionally made good money because of their limitations, but those limitations weren't absolute. No one really knew when the next gold strike would hit that would affect prices or whatever. Math, on the other hand, is certain. The coins are limited, the transactions are verified, and the ledger is immutable. I guarantee you won't get that deal out of CBDCs. More importantly, though, math is what enables us to do this in a completely decentralized, global, censorship-free manner. We've seen firsthand how centralized organizations can be brought to the heel of government or ruined by a corrupt executive or whatever. True decentralization has no such vulnerability. And that's why Odyssey is now looking to do things in a completely decentralized manner after seeing what happened to Library Inc. Or even GreyJ, a recent attempt to decouple creators from YouTube or whatever their platform is. They're already getting legal cease and desist orders, and it's probably just a matter of time before the creators are brought into court. Odyssey says they're working on a decentralized network where people can do just that. Follow the creator, not the platform, and in a way the government can't censor or take down. Cryptocurrency does that with money, and you won't get that deal with gold or silver. Take it from someone who had this happen to them. If you have gold or silver in a warehouse, government can raid it and take it all, and it could take you years to get it back, if you ever do. Decentralized crypto, decentralized exchanges, private marketplaces, and other solutions prevent all of this. They couldn't be taken down the way Silk Road was. They couldn't be raided the way Liberty Dollar was. They couldn't be censored the way Parler was. Seriously, what more could you ask for? And finally, Sid Padmanaban asks, "Had you lived in France during the early 1790s, pre-Reign of Terror, would you have supported the French Revolution? My reading of it is that it started with some good principles, but got corrupted." Yeah, it was inspired by the same principles as the American Revolution, and even the same publications such as Thomas Paine's Common Sense. The problem is, they didn't let those principles be their guide. Believe me, I'm no fan of old money aristocracy, and if I'd lived in the South in the early 19th century and they were beheading plantation owners, I probably would have been one of the crowd. But there's a difference between going after the political class and just going after the rich. They actually beheaded a lot of people who would have been their biggest allies, including Marie Antoinette. And what did they set up? A new aristocracy led by Maximilien Robespierre, who ended up being way worse than the ones they revolted against. Orwell had a lot of this in mind when he wrote 1984. Robespierre's title was Citizen. He was a member of the Committee of Public Safety, and yet his rule was dubbed the Reign of Terror by the people. So you get the reasons behind the Thermidorian reaction. Of course, that resulted in Napoleon taking over. I mean, you could argue that Napoleon was the lesser of two evils, but by that token, it means that the lesser of two evils gets you Napoleon. So there's that. All of it just underscores the importance of having consistent, logically deduced, universally applicable principles and sticking by them. So thanks so very much for watching. Until next time, comment for the comment god, shares for the share throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell, and check out other videos on my channel and like and share them as well to get them above the shadow banning. Again, I cannot stress enough how much that helps. And of course, go to donate.bogosity.tv for all sorts of ways to support, including PayPal, Venmo, and various cryptocurrencies. And remember, you can become a regular supporter not only on Patreon and Subscribestar, but on Discord as well. Thanks again, and until next time, stay strong and be free.